You're listening to the Live Out Loud podcast with River Wynn and Michelle Flamer.
Hi, River.
Hi, Michelle.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. Yeah, I like when I get to do this with you a couple of times in a row. This is fun.
Yeah, double recording day. We recorded this morning and now we're recording again. I like it.
So I got one answer to that question that you put on our Instagram. So I'm gonna let you take it and then I'll add my one to your gazillion.
Yeah, so our topic today
Yeah.
is about sex. Drum roll. But through a very specific lens,
Love
right?
it. Of course, of course. It's the only way we do it.
Sex when your marriage is ending, after marriage, like in the divorce process, and then being newly single and dating.
So the one that I got was from a dear friend, and she said, "What about widowed also?"
Yeah.
Like those
Yeah.
first interactions once you finally have gone through the grieving process and healing.
Yeah, I've had this conversation coming up a lot recently because I'm supporting several women right now who are in the process of like deciding if they're going to continue their relationship, like examining that, or they're in the divorce process, or they are newly divorced and they are exploring dating, exploring like their sexuality, their queerness. Like, this is a conversation coming up a lot right now. And I was talking with a friend the other day specifically about like the weirdness of intimacy when you know your marriage is most likely ending and failing.
Yeah.
And that's a weird space to be in.
It is a weird space.
Right?
Yeah, no, it is.
And I think there's a lot of confusion for people sometimes of like, should we be having sex? Like if our marriage is ending, should we be having sex? And like I think the answer is so different for everyone because
Yeah.
everyone's process is so different.
Totally.
Like for me, I mean, I wasn't having much sex in my marriage anyways, because it wasn't a safe thing for me because my partner was a chronic cheater.
Yep.
And didn't protect women's sexuality, like sexual health. And so I couldn't physically, emotionally trust him. And so intimacy, as far as I was concerned, was off the table for most of our like relationships in the last couple of years, especially.
Tell us what you think of as intimacy. What's intimacy to you? Because I think when everybody is coming out of this process, I think intimacy could look different.
Yeah, so for me, intimacy is very much emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't have physical intimacy without emotional intimacy.
I'm the same.
And safety. So I think there's a lot of people like who are able to just kind of compartmentalize and be like, oh, I'm horny, like just need to have sex. And that's totally great. I'm not one of those people.
Me either. And I literally say to them, the people, my friends who can do that, I'm like, you're so fucking lucky that you can like push it out of your head or just do it for the pure pleasure of it. It's just,
Amen.
I
Amen.
just can't, but I just, like, I respect them and I'm like,
Yes.
no judgment. It's just, yeah.
It's such a hard concept for me to wrap my brain around for myself. I
Yeah.
love it for other people. Like if other people are able just to like have a good time, that's awesome.
Right.
Like
Two consenting adults.
Really two consenting adults.
Yeah.
Having a great time. And I think the consenting piece is like the really big piece, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's like I have to have emotional and physical safety. And if I don't have an emotional connection with my partner, there's absolutely not going to be physical intimacy.
Yeah.
And sometimes like in my relationship, I would try to create the emotional intimacy by having the physical intimacy, and it just doesn't work that way. It just didn't feel right. And I didn't feel safe. And so it was just like a huge turnoff for me. I didn't want to do that. And the very few times that it would happen, it would be like, I've had a couple glasses of wine and maybe we're cuddling on the couch and I feel a little bit more connected than we've been in a while.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would be afterwards be like, I still don't feel connected. I don't feel. And so for me, it was just really off the table in my marriage. And so like coming to the end of my marriage, it was like, it was honestly, it was a total mind fuck because I was like, I haven't felt sexually and emotionally connected with someone in a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
What is that going to look like in dating?
I feel so foreign.
Once I was like, we're done, like we're getting a divorce, there was no like we hadn't even shared a bed in a couple of months at that point in time. So there was like that was not happening. I know some people like as they're getting divorced or separating, like sex happens.
Yeah.
For me, that was like a hard pass, not happening.
Yeah.
Like I'm done.
Me too.
And so like then going into dating, it was like it was scary. It was scary the thought because I had been with the same person for 8 going on 9 years and hadn't dated, hadn't been with anyone else, hadn't even flirted with anyone else.
Yeah.
It was daunting.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? Like, did it feel scary and daunting coming out of marriage?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, because of being like a total demisexual, I'm just seeing if I like the person enough to like go into with more conversation because I'm not going into it thinking I'm gonna freaking get laid tonight, right? Like it's a whole,
Yeah.
I'm literally looking for connection at that point, just the connection. Just like, you know what, you're cute and or you're fun, whatever it is to like maybe get to date to or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just so I've learned so what I learned about myself is that I really need somebody who can go to the depths with me. And I see that that is really rare. And
Yeah.
it's something I don't want to shrink myself around it. Like I realize that's just really it's because it's like my girlfriendships, right? It's like my actual friendships. Like
Yeah.
you and I mean, we know when it's time to be light and funny and and just have a ball, but it's also like, hey, I got to unpack this and we could just go right into it.
Oh, yeah. You want that intellectual connection. You want the depth of
Yes.
like
That's for me the
emotion.
spark.
Like, yeah. And
That's an aphrodisiac. That's like foreplay.
yes. I can't remember, what is your moon sign?
You Taurus.
Taurus, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yep. And mine is
Like
Cancer.
cuddles.
Yeah. And oh, do you know your Venus? Your Venus sign?
I can tell
Mine
you.
is in Gemini. So mine is in Gemini, which is really
Yeah.
fascinating because that's like the only Gemini I have on my chart. And people who have their Venus in Gemini, that's like a love area, right? Like we need and crave intellectual stimulation as like foreplay.
Mm.
So like I love witty banter and like conversation that just like goes on with like subtle innuendos where you're not quite sure if they're
But you're
being like
feeling like
flirty, but like
they dig you.
yeah, that's like I need to be like intellectually wooed before anything else can happen.
Well, I've always said the statement, I need eargasms before orgasms.
Yes, I need brain gasms before.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much like, what I mean. Like we're that because of the
Yes.
conversation, we're back and forth. So my
Yeah.
Venus is Pisces.
Ooh, lots of emotion.
See?
Yeah.
Lots of emotion.
Depth of emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
I have to read up more on that. I honestly haven't even looked at that.
That's a whole nother topic to deep dive, let me tell you.
I
But
know.
that makes a lot of sense. So as we're talking about like for
Yeah.
us needing that emotional connection, like for me coming out of marriage, I was like, it feels like I'm never going to be able to connect with anyone.
Mhm.
And I don't feel dateable. I'm about to be a single mom.
Mhm.
I haven't been in the dating game for 9 years.
Mhm.
And um it feel like I'm in middle age and I'm a mom and like I'm gonna stay
You're
at
not
home mom. And it was just
middle-aged.
like my story and my narratives were just like I'm not attractive enough. Like all of this shit was just
No.
coming like oozing from me of like, how is this ever
Mhm.
gonna happen? And then a month, a month after I moved out, happened to meet someone on a dating app,
Hmm.
and we had a great connection intellectually.
Yeah.
Went on my first date, like from my first real date, honestly, in like 9 years.
Isn't it weird?
And it was a little weird. And
It's
I had like
odd.
all the like anxiety. You didn't know me then, but if you would have known me then, like I was a mess.
Really?
Oh, I was a mess. And like I was on the phone with Mary and Angela the entire because I had to meet this person, like, because we live like 2 hours from each other. So we met
Right.
halfway. And I was like a wreck on the phone with them. I almost turned around and went back home a couple of times. And this was just meeting someone for coffee in the middle of the day
Oh
on a
my God.
Saturday.
I honestly think we should ban coffee dates. I think having to sit and stare at somebody is horrendous. I think you should always
No,
take
I
a
love
walk.
it. I love it though, because he and I
Go grab
sat.
coffee and then go walk.
Well, that could work too, but like we sat on a couch. Like there was a coffee shop that had a couch.
Oh, that's
And like
nice.
we sat on a couch and just like we talked on that couch for 3 hours.
That's cool.
And I immediately felt great with this person. And it was the sweetest date. Like he bought my coffee, like was super nice, opened the doors, like such a gentleman, all of that. And then at the end of the day, like we just kept talking. Like we talked all the way out to the parking lot. He walked me the car, and then we stood by the car and talked for like another 30 minutes. And then he kissed me, and it was the first person I had kissed in almost 9 years. It was a new person.
Yeah, how was that?
And I thought driving over, I thought I was not going to do that. I thought it was going to be too terrifying, that it would be too fast, like all of that, right? But it felt
Yeah.
so natural. And it was like, it took me right back to former me who used to date. And I was like, oh, it's like riding a bicycle.
Mhm.
I got this.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I just love kissing, so I didn't have a problem with that. It's just more of when and where does the next part happen? And I just realized over time, I'm like, it'll just show itself. It'll just, the opportunity will arise.
Yeah, it does. And then when it happens, and I'm not going to say like for everyone, it's not going to be awkward. I think probably sometimes just a lot of like, especially being in a relationship for a really long time, like it might be awkward to have sex with someone for the first time and
Yeah.
have to like communicate what you like.
Right? There's not, well, there hopefully is some intuition to it, but
Yeah,
but then
like you
there's
never know what
it's
you're
just the
walking into.
nuances of, yeah, it's the nuances of getting somebody, getting to know that person's movements, the person's sounds,
Yes.
all that sort of stuff.
Little things like when this person and I did end up having sex, like afterwards being like, oh, I'm so used to like hopping in the shower with my spouse, but like, oh no, like you're a new person and we're not going to just hop in the shower together. And it got weird and awkward. And that was the part where it was like, I had to really sit with like, this is a totally different person. I have to get to know what they like, what works for them, and find a groove with them, and stop thinking about it in the context of what I've always done with the person that I was married to.
Yeah.
It's a whole new ballgame.
Yeah. Do you like taking showers right after with your person?
I mean, I like taking showers with my person while doing things and
Yeah,
before
totally.
and after. No, I'm that person. I'm like,
I love the shower too. I think it's
the
such a
shower, long makeouts. Like I am a
Yeah.
very like physical affection person. So like for me, foreplay is like cuddling. For
Yeah.
me, like, just being connected to
So
like
what date usually do you give it up? For any able-bodied humans who might fancy you.
That just like so much depends on the person in the scenario, because it's
Yeah.
like that first
that's the
person that
answer.
that first person that I dated after my marriage was ending, like we pretty much just had a physical relationship, but there was also a really strong like intellectual and like, I don't want to say emotional, because I think people hear emotional and think love, but it wasn't like
Yeah.
love. It was like, no, like we had a deep care for each other right
Yeah.
off the bat and a deep respect for each other, because he was also a single dad and we had kids who were the same ages, and we had a lot in common, just like values and whatnot. And so there was like a deep affection that really quickly kind of came through.
Yeah.
And so it was very much us just enjoying each other. And so right off a second date, I mean, our second date plan was to hook up. Like that was the plan.
Right.
But since then it's like, it just really depends on the situation. I think for me, I don't like to put restraints on it. Like, oh, I'm going to wait 90 days or I'm going to wait until the third date or anything like that.
Right.
I like it to be organic and just in the moment, if it feels right, going for it.
Yeah.
Because physical connection is really important to me. And if I feel that intellectual connection and I feel like camaraderie, like all of that, like I'm emotionally getting gratified, I don't feel weird about that. I don't feel like I need to wait longer. Does that make sense?
No, totally. I think it just has to, that consent piece. It's just like, hey, I think you just kind of know when it's on, you know what I mean? It's like, are we going to block this or just let it flow?
Yeah. I like the flow part.
I
Yeah.
do too. I like the flow part too. I mean, I can I can totally be rigid sometimes, but I also I do enjoy the times where it does flow. Like it just feels so much easier.
Well, I think too, like not only the flow with sex, but like just the flow of getting back into dating.
Yeah.
I think when you start putting numbers and dates on things, it's so much pressure. Like for some people, like for me, starting to date a month after I had moved out and was leaving my marriage, for some people that would maybe be way too fast.
Yeah.
For me, it was really necessary. It really did a lot of healing for me. But I also was down, like at the end of my marriage, I was so lonely. I had been cheated on for so long. I was so hurt. I was so lonely. Truly was the feeling that like coming out of my marriage, having all the narratives I did about my body and like being a single mom, I needed that healing of this really attractive, intelligent man that thinks I'm sexy as fuck and we're having a great time. Like it was very healing and nurturing, and I needed that. So for me, that was like a no-brainer. But for other people, it might take a year. It might take 2 years. It depends on where you're at and what your needs are and what works for you and where you are at in your healing process.
Yeah. I mean, it did. It took me around 1.5 years to feel comfortable in my skin to say, okay, I'm ready to start allowing whatever's meant to come my way, right? Like I've started opening my heart.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So some of the people wrote back, answered our
questions? A lot, yeah. So I put a Instagram question box on my Instagram page and I got a lot of responses. I just asked people to share their thoughts, questions, experiences with, sex as your marriage is ending or struggling in marriage, and during divorce and after divorce. I mean, I know people who I personally know people who like after divorce, they still occasionally hook up. They're just in proximity with each other and they have that comfort level. And so, yeah, the responses were super interesting. So I think we should just read some of the responses because some are just reflections on like experiences. So
I love it.
Yeah, let's do it. So the first one I loved. Someone said, this whole topic is the topic of a book that I'm working on.
Oh, that's cool.
And I got really excited because this person is someone that I really connected with over the divorce process. And so I look forward to hearing about this person's book. So
I love that.
Hopefully they'll share their book with us. Maybe we can get them on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I love that idea.
I know that this one is going to get you. So the next one is the sharing of truth. I didn't know cunnilingus was a thing until a post-divorce hookup. #sheltered. #only gave.
That is awesome.
This is from a woman. And when I read it, I was like, I can't fathom going an entire marriage not receiving. But I think that's more common than people might realize.
Yeah, I mean, if you just if you know or have been hanging out in that the Lilies group, the Club Lilies on Facebook, which
Yeah.
you're in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's some heartbreaking stories, but they talk a lot about, going understanding. And I mean, there's just a lack of awareness within a lot of women's bodies, especially those who are going through the grieving of religion, are leaving the churches that they've, really trusted in for all these years. And there is just so much shelter around, that space. And you can speak to it.
So much. I'm nodding my head in agreement because I mean, I
Yeah,
know this person came from a religious background
that makes
and
sense.
um that's such a common narrative, where
It's a thread, yeah.
women's bodies are treated as shameful, and it is your job and your role to like please your husband.
Hmm.
And most religious women don't receive an actual sex education that is extensive, and honestly, a lot of them don't even understand their own bodies. I
True.
mean, a lot of religious women have never touched themselves.
Yeah.
Like they don't know
Oh, they don't
their
know.
own anatomy,
Yeah.
let alone what someone else can do to it. So that's a huge thing to like unpack and like relearn if you
Well,
are
in
religious and
the
getting divorced.
in the lesbian community, we laugh about it because we don't laugh about that part, but we laugh about lesbian sex because it's not a one bam, wham bam, thank you, ma'am. It like everyone giggles about it because it really does go on like for hours and hours and hours and hours because you're having conversation, then you're, enjoying each other, and it's just a whole dance with emotional connection and
Yeah.
physicality. And it just touches so many different levels,
Mhm.
whereas it's just not the missionary act.
Yeah, and I think that would probably blow a lot of women's minds because, like, not, and again, I'm not going to say all men because not all men,
True.
but a lot of men out there have no freaking clue what they're doing
How to please a
or
woman.
how to approach the female body.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of women out there having really bad sex.
I know. It's like, why is it so hard for us to ask? Not even to ask, for us to explore different narratives within in the sheets. You know what I mean? It's like, why does it have to be one way? Why does it have to be
Mhm.
this way? Why does the man always have to feel the need to get off, for the collective, and
I saw a graphic today that I saved it so I could say it the correct way, but it said something to effect of like, imagine, oh my gosh, I'm gonna butcher it. But it basically said something about how women are so brave because they go into sex not knowing if they're gonna orgasm, and men always know they're going to.
oh
It was
my
just
God,
like,
that's
I
a
was
good
like I
analogy.
butchered it, but it was just like I laughed so hard. I was like, yeah, accurate facts. And like the amount of women that you hear say like within their, marriage that
Hmm.
they've never had an orgasm,
Hmm.
or it takes a really long time, or they've just never even done that for themselves, kind of
Hmm.
blows my mind because I'm like, knowing your body is really important. It's a
Hmm.
really important piece of sex. And when you know your body, you know what works for you and you know what feels good and you know what to do. And then let's say you have to teach a partner, like you're going to be able to teach a partner what works for you.
Totally. And then the more foundation that you've built, the more emotional and intimacy that you've built, it's funny how all the rest of it just sort of falls into place at that point.
Yes. Yeah. And if we have any dudes listening, I think we have more women than dudes, but I think men really don't understand sometimes how much, for a lot of women, not saying all women because not all women feel this way, but a lot of women really need that emotional connection,
Hmm.
and they need the foreplay, and they need the time, right? They need the nurturing. And I think a lot of men just really can't wrap their brains around that. And I will like give an example is like, the person I divorced, didn't understand the concept of like foreplay and aftercare, no matter how much I talked about it. Didn't understand. And so it's like the intimacy, it was like maybe 15 minutes at most from start to finish. And there was no aftercare cuddling and the things that I craved and needed. So it was like I was not getting my needs met at all. He was always getting his needs met. So it was a huge turnoff to me. So like, why would I want to continue having intimacy with you if you are
Right.
obtusely not learning what my needs are and not providing it?
Totally.
Versus the person I had a relationship with after leaving my marriage, even though it was a short-term thing, there was so much care and intentionality put into it, and it would last for hours because he understood that and he
Yeah.
gave it that intention and that care.
That's beautiful. So now
And
you
it
know.
blew my mind. So now
Yeah,
I knew, my bar got picked up off the ground. And I think that that can be a really healing experience for people to
Oh, for
realize
sure.
what's out there and what you can have, what you
I
can
mean,
experience.
we talk about intentional dating, and one of my friends is dating somebody new, and she went to BDE Moves, Whitney Miller,
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they're on her website, and I can send a link on our on the show notes.
Yeah.
But it is a PDF questionnaire for you to engage with your partner to see where you guys are on the same page naturally, because you answer separately and then you read them together.
Mm.
And then you can see where the non-negotiables like parts of the body are, and what they're not
Yeah.
into, and then what's sort of that middle range where maybe they haven't experienced yet, but they're open to it. And would be fun to see like how you align with somebody. So I'm
I
going to
love
incorporate
that.
that. Yeah, I'm going to incorporate that. Like once you kind of know you're into the person enough, like
Yeah.
I think that's a fun, like, you can it would be a fun date night conversation, virtual
Well,
or not.
and that's another layer too, right? Is like
Yeah.
being with someone
You can
who is
talk to
able
about
to
it.
communicate about sex.
Yes.
Like how many of us, like I know for me, like we didn't talk about sex because it was a triggering topic, especially after being cheated on for both of us, of that person feeling inadequate, that person feeling shamed for having cheated, all of that. It was like this vicious cycle. And for me, it was traumatic of like, I just simply don't want to have sex with you. I don't want to talk about it. Like, and so like being able to, with the person that you're, newly dating, or whether you're going into a partnership with someone, being able to communicate about sex, like that's huge. And that's one thing I love about like my friends who are polyamorous, like the poly community, is they're so communicative about their sexual needs,
I get
like
that.
there's so much emphasis on talking about sex, being transparent about it, like talking things through. That's huge.
Well, and I think part of the more that I learn about that culture via friends as well, but also just being fascinated by it, not again personally for me, but
Mhm.
I really respect it through the communication piece as well, because they are consistently having to check in with each other because new partners come along, or they're just always having to like, I mean, their skin is really tough at this point. Like, because what
Mm.
you're having tough conversations with so many different people.
Yeah,
They're
I
not
feel
all
like
going to be
it's a
pleasant.
like it's a deep level of emotional self-awareness and maturity
Yes,
to do
it's
that. I really
huge,
truly think.
huge.
Like I
Yeah.
really like poly is not for me, but I really admire people who do it and do it well, because that really truly takes a deep level of
Well,
self-awareness.
well, people think it's like all about sex, and it's not.
Mhm.
That's the thing. It's like it's just about enjoying connection on all different levels, possibly with all different people. Like,
Yeah.
hey, Jane for me is literally sunshine. We go for walks in the park. So we have a really fun connection, and we go to the movies. And then John for me, it's like is a little bit deeper. He's a little bit more creative. Like it's all the parts of what we like about people, and their different dimension, but they look for it in actual human form.
Yeah, and
Opposed
I
to
think
us.
that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So the next comment was
Yeah.
for me it was liberating. Sex after I got out of my marriage helped me rediscover myself.
Yas, queen.
Yes. Love that for you.
Liberating. Love it for you. Really
And then
looking forward to it. I'm just kidding. Really need some liberation over here.
liberation.
Liberate me.
Liberation or liberation? I don't know. They go hand in hand.
Oh, snap. That was cute. That was
And then this one kind of I felt this one because I kind of am there a little bit, but this person said I'm having a hard time trusting men. So much that I'm really just avoiding the dating world. That's that, and this person is going through like relationship ending, newly single, and I relate to that a lot because
I
even though I
feel her pain.
dated,
Well,
what's that?
him or her. Him or her.
Her. This is a woman.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I feel her pain.
Yeah, I feel that too because even though I dated, um, there's still, I mean, you and I were just talking about this yesterday
Yeah.
around with me with dating apps. Like I have this narrative that everyone out there is out to get you in some way, shape, or form, or is a terrible person in some way, shape, or form. And I logically know that's not true because I've experienced that it's not true.
Right.
But it's like my system experienced that behavior and like the lack of trust and safety for so long that my system still believes that to be true, even though I know and I'm changing that narrative. It's a hard one to break.
Yeah, it totally is.
Yeah. I feel that pain. And I hope this person can change that narrative someday.
Yeah, I mean, it just takes that inner work part. It's that,
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's self-love that heals all or anything like that, but I think just getting a little more clear about what you want going forward sort of rekindles that love within ourselves. Because we start to dream again. Like when we have enough space from something, it's not like we have to make a choice to meditate every morning. Like not everybody's like that, right?
Yeah.
But if they just were to sort of allow themselves to look at maybe what they want in the future and allow their heart to soften a little bit, will give them some grace as well as maybe put them in a softer space around themselves and just be like, why am I so hard on me? Or, whatnot.
I feel like in order for your experience of the other gender or same gender or just relationships in general to change, that in order for the energy that you're putting out that calls in a certain energy to change, you really have to take a deep look at like inner child.
Yeah. Oh,
and childhood experiences of love and what you learned about love by observing your parents, by observing the people around you, how you received love as a child. I was speaking with coaching client of mine the other day, and we were talking about this, about recognizing a pattern that comes up in her relationships consistently, where she's a caregiver and all the people that she has been with, she's taken care of. They have been not able to step up to the plate, not able to equally contribute. Like she's been the main breadwinner, the house buyer, like all of this while kind of carrying the weight of these people that she's dated. And then as we're talking about childhood and like relationship with the parents, I was like, oh, have you ever noticed that you were doing very similarly what the dynamic is between you and this parent? And it was a moment where it like blew her mind.
Yeah.
She was like, I never thought about that. And as we started like kind of deep diving the relationship between both of her parents together, and then with her, there was a line drawn between like her relationship with parents and then the relationship she's had with partners, where it was like the same cycle kept coming up over and over, this pattern. And having awareness of that, like it's so subtle. It's so subtle. And having an awareness of that can immediately shift how you look at relationship and how you approach it and how your energy is and what you call it.
I literally can easily see how just staying single is like, can just be the thing. Like, because in the sense of, it's nice not having anybody like to sometimes to like contradict what, what I feel like actually doing, or, say, no, let's not do that. Let's do this. Or, I mean, sometimes it's really nice just being able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what do you want to do today? But I just know that I just love being relational. I love being in a couple. And
Mm.
so I genuinely know, it's like, it's only a matter of time because I just love, but I mean, it has to be the right person. But I'm saying like, I definitely will not be single for my whole life. Like I love love.
Same. And you know what? This just popped up in my head as you were saying that, is like, I I don't know that I've ever loved being in a couple
Oh, ooh, really?
because I've never had a partnership that felt easeful.
Wait, so who was your favorite relationship? What was your favorite relationship? If you can look back on them, and it doesn't matter if it was still sucky, but it's one that has to be.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about this person in one of my solo casts about soulmates that we dated off and on for like 10 years from the time I was 16 until I was in my mid 20s. We would
Yeah.
just kind of like come back together and then drift apart and come back together. And, it'd be like maybe sometimes for a couple of weeks and sometimes for a couple of months. And that person, that is the closest I ever felt like I loved being with someone from a space of just genuinely loving them, and not because I needed a relationship or gratification or
Yeah.
validation. Like, because we had a soul connection,
Hmm.
soul connection from the moment we met, and we were friends for a while before we even dated. And every time we are in person, even now, if I guarantee you, if I were to see that person now today, we would still immediately have that feeling of like
Nurture.
nurture,
Yeah.
just like moths to a flame.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with like sexual, like romantic. It's just like
It's
pure
soul. It's a
love for each
real,
other. It's soul.
it's
Yeah.
a soul connection. Yeah.
Where the struggle was is that I was a chaser, and I had this idea of when you find love like that, you have to hold on to it. You have to
Mhm.
grasp onto it. You have to make it fit into a box. And so like I was like, well, yeah, we're going to spend the rest of our lives together. We're going to buy a house and have kids and all of that. And he was like, whoa, I've got to go to college and like build my career and travel the world and do all these things. And like, I don't even know if I want to be in a relationship right now because I am 18 years old. Like, and so throughout the years, we've had this dynamic where we would start dating. It would be easeful and flow and just amazing and nurturing. And like, we would just get lost with each other for like hours, days, weeks. And then I would try to like hold on to it and
Hmm.
make it like take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And he would immediately just shut down and then
Mhm.
disappear. So it was like this chase, disappear
Mhm.
dynamic.
That's why 10 years on and off.
Yeah, it was
That's a
intense.
long time.
And so like thinking about it, I'm like, I've never just had a relationship where I let go of control.
Oof.
And so for me, as I think about being single, I'm like, I love being single. And I'm hesitant to date because I know that the next level of relationship for me is going to be very different. And I haven't experienced it yet. And it's unknown. And this unknown is a little scary right now. And that's okay.
So how do you prep yourself?
Practicing by letting go of control of everything else in my life.
Yeah, totally.
Like
No.
just practicing continuously being grounded,
Hmm.
of being self-aware, of noticing my triggers, just really like solidifying my relationship with myself. And then also like you and I were talking about this yesterday of even things like realizing, oh, not everything is a red flag.
Thank you. Exactly.
You can have a
Exactly.
disagreement with
When
someone.
red flags are not actually red flags.
Yeah, you can have a disagreement with someone. Someone can make a mistake. And that doesn't mean you have to write the person off, because
Mm.
it's about who they are as a person. If someone who's truly a toxic, unhealed, immature, not a great person is made that same mistake, that's a giant fucking red flag. So they're probably going to keep doing it, never apologize, and never repair.
Yeah.
But if someone who's self-aware and emotionally mature and healthy
Yeah.
makes a mistake, they're able to step up and own it, and you're able to have a conversation about it and work through it. And that's a normal part of the human experience.
Yeah, and it can still come up in, in conversations, and it's not a pain point. It's more like that was cool that we could get through that conversation, and what do we learn in that, and what we don't want to repeat. I think it's important for people to really dissect that. And it's interesting because when we go to our friends, when we open ourselves for the conversation where really we're asking them for approval in almost a moment, right? And as former people pleasers, or most of us women are actually codependent. We're all on a spectrum of it, but a lot of it is. And so it's fascinating to me that you learning, I think through dating, is learning to trust your gut too.
Yes, building
And
that trust muscle, like really,
yes,
really trusting yourself. And I think I was talking about this was everything we're talking about just is like I love it because it's resonating so much because I'm having these conversations with people a lot.
Yeah.
And what we were talking about that, like how do you get to that point of trusting yourself so much that you don't need to look for outside wisdom and validation? Like how do you get to
Yeah.
that place where you truly trust your inner wisdom? And for me, it's like, well, that's been a long journey. I'm there. I fully trust myself.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of unlearning and unpacking
Yeah.
and support from the right kind of people who lift me up and like trust me to trust myself.
Yeah. Without these experiences, we don't expand. That's one thing that Angela has made very clear in both of us, and in our readings, is really we're here to expand in order to teach, because here we are in the podcast
Yeah.
getting to share our experiences. If we didn't have these wonderful, beautiful throat chakras that are vibrant for both of us, where we can share our story,
Yeah.
and we can build trust around others to share theirs with us, in order for the collective, to the ripple effect, of
Yeah.
change. I think online dating is absolutely a necessity. I get it. I really get it. It's just it's a very hard line to toe at times. And I think
Yeah.
it's all about mindset and
Mhm.
what the intention, again, intention is very important,
Mhm.
around what you're trying to accomplish on those dating sites. Like, we've talked about this before on the dating episode, is like, are you looking for a hookup? Are you looking for something casual? Are you looking for a friend with benefits? And then, are you looking for a long term? And does long term to you mean forever, or does it mean
Mhm.
like a year in the lesbian world, that kind of
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah. Yep. All of that.
So
So I'm going to read a couple more.
yeah, do it.
So someone said, in the context of sex, like in marriage,
Yeah.
how to share how it makes me feel like an item and not a human. And reading that one is heavy for me because I
Read
know
that
this
to me.
person so well.
It's a
And
woman too.
yes, well,
Okay.
yep. Not a single man, even though there's a lot of guys that followed me, not a single
Yeah.
man responded. So it's all women. Um, and that's a hard one because I think going back to what I was saying about like so many men just cannot wrap their brains around what women truly need in relationship, especially in marriage, to feel sexually active and desired and to desire to have sex because like especially if you've had kids. And
I
this
think a lot of men, of course, we want to say not all men, but
yeah.
like they really, like, they feel so entitled, and it's like, if
Well,
they
and
could
we've
just ask their person, like ask their girlfriend or wife or whatever, and just say, you know what? Sex has gotten stagnant. What is it that you would want these days? Like, just ask, like, make it fun. Like, hey, let's have a beer and talk about how
Well,
I can make
and
you.
here's the problem though, because here's what most women who are mothers would say.
Mhm.
I need to not have to ask you to
Yeah.
lighten my mental and physical load as a mother, as a
Mhm.
parent, in order for me to be relaxed enough to even feel like I can be in a space where I want to have sex and connect with you in that way. Because
Mhm.
so many women are carrying that invisible load
Yep.
of parenting, where even the like, I have some friends that I love dearly. I adore the husband. I adore him. He's a wonderful man. But even in watching them interact as parents, I've seen them go from dating to married to parents, and even seeing him, he's a wonderful father. There are still times when I observe and I'm like, he even as this wonderful man still doesn't understand the mental load that his wife carries
Mhm.
as the parent who's home with the children most of the time, until they made the switch and she went back to work and he's now the parent at home with the
Oh, that's
children
actually really
most
cool.
of the time.
He's a
And
man.
yeah, and so the reality is that like most men just have been so enabled from childhood
Mhm.
that women are going to carry the load. Whether it was their mothers or their sisters or their grandmothers, most men are used to women doing the nurturing, the caregiving, and the taking care of the home. Even in, people might hate me for saying this, but even in a lot of progressive liberal households, that is still a dynamic that happens. There are
Mm.
a lot of enabled men out there who are used to women taking care of them.
Yeah.
And they just can't wrap their brains around how women don't want to have to ask you to put the kids to bed.
I mean, I love an A-type personality woman. Like, hello. Like, there's nothing sexy than somebody knowing what they want in life, or, what, or just being so sure-footed about themselves. Like, there's a lot of coolness around that. I mean, but then there's also, just a woman who understands herself emotionally, and she may run a little softer, but still can speak to, like, hey, these are my needs. I think just being clear, like, I love that cute gay doctor. What is it? Diagnose Sense, or I can't remember the
I'm not sure who you're talking
Instagram.
about.
He's a gay therapist, and it's really,
Oh, the guy in Portland?
yeah, no, no, not, are you talking about Dr. Jeff?
Yeah.
No, yeah, no.
Oh, okay. Not
I
the same
think he's
person.
bisexual, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
I thought that for the longest time, but no, I think so he writes about all this, like, normalize, just, or communication is sexy as fuck, or being
yes.
clear is just sexy. So it really doesn't matter what plane you come in on. It's like, as long as you come in clear.
Yep. And I think the disconnect is that a lot of men just don't understand how to communicate. And they
Mhm.
shut down when women try to communicate.
Yeah,
And there's a huge disconnect that happens.
totally.
Yeah. So, next one, when to begin exploring, especially with your sexual orientation. And this
Oh,
is in the context of like going through marriage struggles, ending, divorce.
oh, later in life, probably.
Yeah. Kind of. Yeah.
I mean, do you know do you know this person?
Yeah. This is also someone I know personally. Yes.
Okay, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So they're
And the
about
queer thing has been on the table for a while. So, like, trying to determine when it's okay when you're in the process of like, maybe your marriage is ending, maybe it's not, but you're separated.
yeah.
Like, when do you get to start exploring your queerness and actually explore it and decide if like that's truly for you? Like,
I
when do you
think
get
as
to do
long as
that?
it's consensual, if you're still married and there's this, you're living together still, like, are they in the guest room? Are they in another home
We're
altogether?
like talking like living in different homes, fully separated.
Yeah, then I think anytime. I think what you need, I think what happens is like, because just from my friends who have done this, who are in this process, it's like, I think you have to date masks, femmes, like, if you're in or trans, I mean, like whatever, non-binary, like I think utilizing the dating site to like really practice and figure out like what kinds of people, what like makes you feel like this is fun, like yes, more of this please, or like, God, I
Yeah.
never thought I'd like a femme girl, like you just might be surprised by different people's energy and how they walk into the room and what kind of space or the space they take or don't take. And I think you
Yeah.
have to be exploratory and be, it's more just about, it's like curious in dating, like
Yeah.
taking that approach of like, I am going to like one of each person in that realm. Like I'm gonna like the non-binary. I'm gonna like the female to male. I'm gonna like, the cis man. I'm gonna like the cis female. I'm gonna and then have fun with it. Like look at it from a very curious sort of scientific approach and just see how your body feels in each individual space, like, meeting for coffee, keeping it almost like a level playing ground. Go to the same coffee shop, do the same, like get the same drink, and then see like what that energy is after, 45-minute coffee date.
So for me, like speaking to the when of exploring, I feel like don't come for me, people. Marriage to me has always just been like a government institutional thing.
Right.
Like it's a contract. Marriage is a contract.
Right.
And if your contract states that you've agreed that you're going to be monogamous,
Yep.
you shouldn't be exploring anything.
Correct.
Until you are out of contract.
And that means if the person cheated, then that's the
Yeah.
end of the contract.
Yeah. And for me, when I say end of contract, it's when two people have decided that they're not going to be together.
Yeah.
Because like people have said to me like, oh, didn't you feel terrible dating before you were actually divorced? And it was no.
Yeah.
No, because
You
the
broke
minute
the
I
fucking
said
contract.
we are done, and I physically moved myself out of the home, and in my mind, the relationship was done. We both knew.
Yeah.
No questions asked. Relationship was done. The contract's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, we're married legally still and we're doing our taxes together because that's how our system and our culture and society is. But like between two people, the contract was done.
Yeah.
And that's when I would start to explore. If you feel ready to. When you know that you're done with your monogamous relationship.
But look, if your ass is broken hearted and you're still processing grieving, please don't go on the dating apps. Please don't. Please
Or if you do, have your friends sit with you.
Yes. Take a friend with you.
Sit with you and help you swipe.
Oh yeah, that's
Have
true.
your friends field your messages.
Oh my Lord. No, they shouldn't be
But
on
you know
there.
what? Also, like, fuck it. Like, some people might just need a really good rebound, even when they're heartbroken, and that's okay too.
That's okay, but don't make the person, hello me, sit through the painful conversation of how your now ex is dating a 22-year-old from the gym.
Yeah, don't treat people that you're trying to date like a therapist.
Exactly. That's all I'm saying.
Dating
Like,
is not your therapy.
exactly. Like, don't go on there if you're just looking for like somewhere to vent.
Go see a therapist for that. Find
BetterHelp.com.
someone to date to get your rocks off, and they both will help you.
Totally. I mean, there are apps for that.
Okay, so I'm gonna. I love this so much. Love this so much. I'm going to read a little bit more. Let's see here. We had so many. It's like I want to read them all, you know. So I'm just gonna read a couple. Let's not deep dive them. I'm just gonna read them so people can hear them. Okay. I have never dated as an adult, and I was terrible at dating when I was dating. So this person is a later in life divorce, married the same person for forever. So that is a whole other ball game. Like, we get it. Another person said, not struggling through divorce or single life, but struggling hard postpartum with sex. Don't touch me.
Oh.
Lord, I feel that.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much, I won't deep dive it, but I'm just gonna say briefly, there's so much pressure on new moms to get back into sex when they're in the thick of postpartum and their bodies are just a hormonal mess and they don't want to be touched and they're touched out. Like, so that's a whole episode in of itself.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
So
it is.
I feel that a lot of women will resonate with that. This one's a little bit longer, but I love it. I love what she's had to share. So I'm going to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
As a single mom who invests most of my time into my kids, dating isn't a huge priority for me. And if I dig deeper, it isn't because I don't want that part of my life. I do very much, but I've had enough experiences to realize that we aren't all looking for the same things. I'm not just looking for fun or a good time. I'm not interested in sharing my body with someone that only wants my body. I'm looking for someone with awareness, accountability, vulnerability, and reciprocity, something I haven't always had in my relationship. That means that the majority of my sexual experiences or intimacy are solo. It's where I feel safe. And building that relationship with myself has helped me to build confidence, release shame, and unlearn beliefs about sex and intimacy. I think it's allowed me to step into my goddess energy. And as I've done that, I've noticed that my outer experiences and dating potential has shifted dramatically. I feel more open to sharing myself with someone. It's no longer about needing that outside validation or wanting to be chosen to prove that I'm lovable or valuable. It's knowing that I am lovable and valuable. I don't think I'd have come to this space without having that solo, intimate relationship with myself. I needed to explore those parts of myself and let go of outdated beliefs and heal from previous sexual encounters that left me feeling less than. Now I won't settle. And now I'm hoping to find someone that has the emotional intelligence to connect with me in a more than physical way.
Wow, beautiful.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Love this so much.
Sounds like someone you would want to date.
This is a very lovely friend of mine that is just actually doesn't live too far from you, and I will probably go hang out with when I come to visit you.
Yeah, totally. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Little bit of trigger warning for the next one for people who've been through really rough things.
Okay.
My marriage was sexless for probably 2 years before I finally filed for my divorce.
That's
I was
it.
respected. I was respected very little by my then partner, and sex was merely about him getting off and not all about my pleasure. So I developed the attitude of, why have sex with you when I can pleasure myself better? He would spend all night at the bar and come home trashed, tell everyone about how I would never have sex with him. He constantly spent my money, I was the breadwinner, on booze. And I found out towards the end of our marriage that he was doing hard drugs and hiding it from me.
Ooh,
It took
damn.
a year of therapy and a diagnosis of PTSD to finally work through what he put me through, including shutting myself down sexually. When I got together with my current partner, I was all but overwhelmed by how he always takes care of me during sex. It was a huge change and a breath of fresh air.
Go girl, I'm glad for her.
Yeah, it's so healing. I love that. This next one, I think a lot of women who've had C-sections are going to
Wow,
totally
you got a
relate to.
lot.
I know. We're almost done. We're
Yeah,
almost
that's
done. But
cool. No, it's great.
I feel like, when people put themselves out there to share this, and I think a lot of women will relate to these. So I
For
want to
sure.
share.
I love it.
The next one says, I found that I was suddenly extremely self-conscious about my C-section scar. She's talking about post-divorce.
Yeah.
I hid it. I felt embarrassed for him to see it. Like, it was clear evidence that I had been with another man sexually. I don't know why that embarrassed me, but I still so vividly remember that first sexual encounter post-divorce, and it was 3 years after. And thinking back, that person could have cared less about my C-section scar.
That's right. Most people don't care about any of that.
No,
Not when you get to that place. Like if you're someone who's emotionally mature and you've been having the conversations and there's adult reciprocity happening and stuff, at that point, no one cares.
No, they really don't. And the thing I found, because that was a huge narrative, like I mentioned, that I was just, when I was
We all
33,
do.
34, when I was getting divorced, And I had had 2 kids, and I had C-sections, and I had gained a lot of weight during my pregnancies, and I had struggles losing it afterwards because I didn't know that I had I was pre-diabetic and that I had stuff going on with my body. And I really had this narrative that, like, how is anyone ever going to think I'm attractive? But I
Right.
also had kind of heard that a lot in my marriage, like little subtle digs of like, you were way more sexually active when you were actually like working out and taking care of yourself.
Wow.
Things like that. And I
It
think
was
a lot of
also
women.
when you weren't cheating on me, right? It's like,
Exactly.
hello. Like,
These covert narcissists.
he's
Uh,
such a brainiac.
yeah. But like it really is like coming out of, especially being in a little longer of a relationship, you don't know how people are going to react to you and your body. And that's a little scary. And I will say, as someone who felt that way, there's a lot of people out there who gonna like you and be attracted to you exactly like you are for who you are and see you who you are. Because I'm just gonna say it, I've honestly had the best sex of my life since getting divorced.
I love that.
In my mid to late 30s, having had 2 kids
Love it.
and having a mom bod, and I hate working out. So I mean, like, if I can do it, you can do it.
I love that. No, I mean, there is a lot of talk around, body image, dysmorphia, all that types of stuff. So, I mean, having body confidence is something, again, sometimes it's the last thing that we work on because,
Yeah.
we're doing all the other work in order to sort of bring a mate in. And it's that body confidence piece that sort of arises or falls, like rises or falls depending upon that emotional connection you have with the person, because you could be on video and be like, yo, this is me, let me show you my muffin top, you know what I mean? Like, if you have like a really fun playful connection with them, they're going to be like, hey, walk away from the screen, I just want to see all of it, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah. And you know what? I think for a lot of women, especially, it really comes from breaking 2 things: getting to know yourself, your body,
yeah,
and having it. Not everyone's going to have a love for their body,
right,
but having an appreciation and
respect,
understanding and a respect for it.
yep,
But then, second, really like, I know for me, I had to really work through this idea. We're very conditioned socially that only socially attractive people get to have good sex or should be having sex or should even be looked at as sexual.
yeah,
And you see that in the way our clothing, the way clothing is provided to people. Like, women who are above a size 10, most of their clothing is not necessarily the most attractive, and it's marketed,
yeah,
like, it's not marketed as sexual clothing, as sexy clothing, attractive clothing. That's changing because people are forcing it to change, right? But like, there's this concept socially we have that only like thin, fit, tall people with long hair and abs get to have great sex.
yep.
And that's not true.
You're right. No,
That's not true.
every body type is having fabulous sex out there, and it's not because of what they look like, it's because of the connections they're building.
Yep. It's beyond the body.
And you just don't have to be afraid. Just say yes.
And if you are afraid, that's okay too. But like, don't let the fear hold you back.
Exactly. I love this episode.
I do too. This is a great topic. I like how many responses we got.
I cannot. That's fantastic. Thank you everyone for who who actually responded to that and helped us create a really special episode.
Yeah, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your truth and letting us share it.
I love it. Living out loud.
That's what we do here.
It's true. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode today, be sure to subscribe and share because what do we say, baby?
Sharing is caring.